Right, Maui, what is your bad point?
Mine is shoot. Where did I put it down? Okay, my bad point is Vitality's CT sides actually, because I actually think their T sides are fine right now. I think that Apex is actually doing a decent job when it comes to calling on those. I think they actually have figured out some of the structure that they want to play with. I think they actually usually I guess not super recently, but with kind of the history of this Vitality lineup, I've seen them pull off numerous T side comebacks. But now I think all of the flaws of some of the individuals on Vitality are very much so being exposed, and I think that you could switch some of the roles around but like it's really hard to watch this team knowing that kind of how I mentioned earlier that they can just target people like Apex. Like the way that Apex plays the A ramp, the way that he plays ramp on Nuke, that's just kind of a nice coincidence. That's same spot name, but I think like he was in particular incredibly weak in this. And also another thing is that when they played Anubis and we had to see Spinks play on that B site as an anchor, I think that's kind of one of his weaker spots. And I just think that right now this team still feels like Zywoo and Who is going to show up. And Magisk is a guy that has thankfully been doing really well for them, but it feels like he's very limited because he's generally in a lot of these anchor spots, so he's not one of the guys that is always having the most impact. But when you actually look at some of the discrepancies in terms of statistics, for CT side of really any top 20 teams, Zywoo versus the rest of his team is just like it's on another level. Like there's no other real top team right now where it's incredibly obvious that one guy has to just shoulder the entire burden. You look at even like oh, I mean, like BlameF has Device now. I mean, you have Simple who has usually a couple like Bit's actually kind of come back into form a little bit there, but you have like there's no real second guy for them right now, and there's definitely no rotator player that's playing that well for the team. And that's just something that we thought Spinks was going to do, but as it turns out, he's a lot more one-dimensional than we would have hoped for. It's like I don't know. I have to give Snappy so much credit, I guess, because they made this guy look like a top 5 rifler in the world, and now for me, Spinks is like just a slightly above average pro.
I think I think they have done like the moves on the map on CG sides that theoretically should make them like a better team, because I do think like Apex gave up, like he was playing a lot of star position before, and he gave all that up to like to give to Spinks, I think, to make him comfortable in those CT sides. So I think it must also be a little bit of a question mark for them, because I feel like they must be sitting and saying that in theory we have done as much as we can. Of course, maybe Apex is not the best anchor in the world, but there's a lot of other teams that also has like the IGL as an anchor. You know, like it's pretty normal. So in theory, I think they have done a lot of those moves that is required to make the roster work. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, this is actually one area I'll give Maui credit. Like, he actually did nail basically exactly the moment where you sell high on Spinks. Like, around Pro League was when he was, like, still looking just good. And he was like, right, the logic at the time was if he goes a bit better, like, towards the end level, then they become even better and they become a world-beating team. He didn't. He regressed and he went down. And the last few months have been dreadful. Like, and crucially, this is the key thing as well. Everyone only ever talks about the T side. It's on CT side even. That's the position where you're just using your skill, like, he actually looks out of sorts on some of the maps. Like and even worse, there are some maps where this is why I wonder how they set him up with Snappy and then Maui, because sometimes it also looks like when he has bad games, like he almost like plays a bit like disconnected from the team or too selfishly or something. Like that makes me think in the other team, they really just gave him everything. They just gave him every best spot. And so like, it's why actually eye test itself can be tricky, because the eye test did check out for that player. I'm telling you, if you go back and watch the POVs, just the gunfights he's taken, it looks mega. His mechanical skills are really top notch. He looked like a player, like his aim's mega. But I have to say, the way he's fit in this team, here's the problem if you're someone like Spinks. On a team like Ents, even if the players are good as your teammates, they will give you everything because they just want like the chance to win. In a team like Vitality, right, they're never, unless you're Zemu, you're never really going to get everything. Like, people like Magus, they have their own ego, you know. They've been the top of the world. They won championships. They're not going to they're not really going to make it like it's you two guys and we're just shit. They're still going to take positions they somewhat want to do or think they can do. Like, so it's way more of a negotiation now, and they clearly have not figured out whatever the problem was. Like I said, Maui, this is how you know in the modern day people don't write like bad written articles, because someone by now would have done a whack pun of like, can Vitality solve the riddle of the Spinks? Like, that's exactly what just two US probably crying to sleep now, knowing that I've just taken their brilliant headline for their article in 2 months, you know, like, there you go, I scooped you. Because I think this is another one I have to admit, it just baffles me. Like, I understand it's hard, the dynamics of when people and the negotiation, like, everyone has to, like, share the positions and the resources and stuff, but there has to be, I'm certain there has to be a way to, like, cut this Gordian knot, Maui. There has to be a way to make it work. They haven't yet, but there has to be. There just has to be.
Yeah, okay. Well,
yeah, go on, Blame.
Yeah, if you have something to say.
I'll go ahead.
Fucking hell, too polite. Right, go on then, Maui, come on.
Yeah. Well, then I think what's really concerning is that, yeah, they did shift some of the spots around for Spinks, but like I looked at actually map by map his stats and just kind of thought of the spots that he has on these maps, and like his CT side is so far the worst on Anubis, but it's only one map. But then his second is Overpass, is where his CT side is really bad, and he's the A rifler, and that's supposed to be your best rifler. You're supposed to, like, when actually this lineup formed, I thought Spinks Zywoo would be a sick duo defending the A site, but actually, as a matter of fact, his rating on the CT side of Overpass against top 30 is 0.86, and like that is just like one of the worst, if not the worst, for A riflers in the top 15. Like, I don't know any team that can work with an A rifler that's performing that badly. And then also, the way that he's performing on his best map, Inferno, like. He's playing B. He's playing like Banana with Apex, and the amount of times I see them lose B is unbelievable. Like, so he's getting a good rating on that map, but it's also like, this is where I think stats lie a little bit. Like, the amount of times I see them actually lose B is very high, despite the fact that he is putting up good numbers there. And I think that's the dynamic between him and Apex is just not there quite yet, because as we kind of remember back to when this lineup was formed with the Danish-French combination, they put Majiskin Dupree towards A, they put Apex and Masuda towards B, and then they just kind of went 1-for-1 Masuda with Spinks. And I actually think the Masuda Apex duo was better. I think they actually did better at Banana. They had more cohesion, and they were actually locking down Banana more frequently. But I don't know what it is between Spinks and Apex, but they're just not finding that sort of tandem when they're working on that side of the map.
Okay. I wanted to say that, like, I think if I had to give my take on why I think he might be playing worse in this team that he doesn't in, so without knowing it, of course, I think that on CT sides, there is a big difference going from playing maybe like, I wouldn't say he's played with a support AWP before, but like a more supportive AWP and more passive AWP, to then going to play with one of the best players in the world. Like, because when you're rotating and playing the spots he is playing with his AWP all the time. And there's a big difference between every time freeze time when you're playing with a passive AWP, you're saying what you're doing as a rifler. There's a big difference with the AWP saying what he's doing, and then you have to adapt to him every single round. So that's definitely something that you have to be able to overcome or like be able to adapt to in order to like still play very good. I'm not saying that's why he has 0.86 rating or whatever on CT Overpass, but I'm saying like that's definitely a big change that might like hit you when that changes. And then I think on T sides, I think in ends, they had like a lot of, I would say, mega aggressive riflers. It's easier to pick your fights when you have those mega aggressive riflers, because you can choose to go first if you feel like that's good, but you could also choose to go last because someone else will just go first. You know, like I think in a team with more structure, maybe that you don't get to pick your fights as much as you do in a team where everyone is just like wanting to run in and like, hey, like when we're running, we're all five just going on one flash, and that kind of like aggressive style that Ins had back with Spinks, I think. So I think maybe on T sides he has to like think a little bit more about, you know, like taking the right fights or like on the timing of taking the fights, whereas before he could kind of like pick it a little bit easier, I think.
Obvious joke that writes itself there. The T sides aren't snappy anymore. So there you go. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.